So this is EE 610, lecture 1. So like I said, this course mostly focuses on designing an amplifier, right? So let's first try and understand what is the typical characteristics that we expect from an amplifier, right? So let me model this amplifier as some network, right? This is a two-port network. Why two ports? Because you need a port to give an input, you need a port to take the output, right? So this is as general as it can get. So I have a network, I have two ports. So this is port number 1 and this is port number 2. Okay. Now I can connect an input here and I expect to see some amplified output at the other side. Okay. Can you give me an example where an amplifier would be necessary? Speaker system, right? So in some of the larger classes that you have attended, you would have seen the instructor using a mic and a speaker so that everybody can hear, right? So the instructor is speaking into the mic is picking up a signal, it then converts that into an electrical signal. Then it goes through an amplifier, so the amplifier takes in some power input, it amplifies the power and it has to deliver this amplified power to some speaker arrangement, right? So we should be able to get an amplification of the signal power as we go through the amplifier, right? That is the basic requirement. Now let us assume that this network is a passive network, right? And typically you would be dealing with passive networks because what does it mean to say that a network is passive? What does it mean? It's a very quiet and calm network, doesn't bug anyone, very passive. So it cannot generate power, right? It can only dissipate energy. So this cannot generate any energy. And typically most of the networks you deal with are going to be passive in nature, right? So if I give P in and if there is only one source here, so this is my signal source, I have fed P in into the passive network, I get P out. What comments can you make about the level of P out with respect to P in? Can P out be greater than P in? It's a passive network. We have only one source that is feeding in some power into the system. So under this condition, your P out can either be equal to P in. When does this happen? Under ideal condition, when there is no power dissipation in our network, right? Or it could be lesser than P in. So as a general statement I can make, P out is lesser than or equal to P in. Right? So clearly if I use a system like this, I cannot get an amplification. So what other suggestion can you do? What if I bring in a secondary source, right, like a battery, and I could connect this battery into this passive network and then let's figure out whether we can get a power amplification. So I take the same network, right. So now that we are getting a little bit more deep into the analysis, I'm also going to add an additional comment about the network. Let's say this network is passive as well as linear. Right? Why linear? Well, you guys have devoted a lot of hours studying linear equations and linear systems. Let's see if we can put that to some good use, right? So let's take a passive linear network. Now I have to add one more additional source. Now typically the additional source that you add is a battery, which is a constant voltage. It's not necessary that it has to be a battery. It could also be a sinusoidal signal, etc. But for now, just for analysis, I'm going to assume that we are adding a battery. So this is my signal source. To this, I have now added a battery. Now, of course, I could have added this additional power source, this battery, to a different location. It doesn't affect our analysis. So we will continue by adding it in series to the existing voltage. What comments can you make about the P out? So let me also give you a format for V signal. V signal could be a DC source, it could be some cosine or a sinusoidal source, or if you're talking about audio signals, it's going to be summation of several sinusoids, right? So let me take a simple case of this being some sine omega naught t. I can assume some amplitude also. Let's say this is some Vi into sine omega naught t. Right? Now, corresponding to this, at the output, you should see a power at the signal frequency. You would also see a power corresponding to the DC voltage that you have applied. How can I confidently make this statement? This is a linear circuit. I can directly apply superposition. So to apply superposition, I would consider one source at a time. So in the first case, I can solve it by connecting only the V signal. And look at what is appearing at the output. Now, if V signal is of the form Vi sine of omega naught t, my output will be of the form some gain times Vi sine of omega naught t. It's also possible to have a phase, but for our discussion now, it doesn't make any difference. So I will simply assume that no phase is added in the process. Now, the other scenario is when we have the battery connected. So again, we have the same network to which I have connected the battery, and it is providing some power to the load. So if the value was V bat, the output signal would be alpha times V bat. Once you have the load, so once you know the load signal, you already know the voltage value, you can calculate what is the power at the output, right? Now, if I had connected the battery at a different location, instead of this being alpha, it could be a different coefficient, could be some beta, that's it, right? But now, what comment can you make about the signal power present at the output? Has it increased? By adding an additional voltage source, by adding an additional battery, which is delivering more power at the input, have I got a power amplification for the signal? Signal gaining, right? So the total power has increased, but the total power has increased because of this component. Your signal power is still remaining the same, right? So what is the conclusion? Please come. If I have a passive network and I keep an additional source, if that passive network is linear, you cannot get an amplification, right? So you have studied, again, linear systems for so long, but turns out in practice you need a nonlinear system to get an amplification. So you require okay. So now, before we look at two-port nonlinear networks, the analysis of nonlinear networks, it requires a little bit more careful consideration, right? So instead of jumping into a two-port network, let us first consider a one-port nonlinear network. We will first learn how to analyze a one-port network. From there, we can proceed and move towards a two-port network. So how does a one-port network look like? So this has only one port. So this is a one-port, two-terminal network. I apply some voltage V across it. I will have some current I through it. If I know the IV characteristics of this network, then I know how this network is behaving. So if it's a nonlinear network, all that it means that I is some nonlinear function of the voltage V applied across it, right? So the most common one-port network that you are used to, which is also linear, is of course the resistor, right? If you apply a voltage V, what is the current flowing through this? It's V by R, or it's some conductance into V, right? So similar fashion, instead of I and V being related by a 1 by R factor, we now have some complicated function, that's all, a complicated nonlinear function. So let me show you a nonlinear one-port device that all of you are actually familiar with. Everyone has seen this? Yeah. So this is a diode. The device is not symmetrical. This is your P node and this is the N. So this is a PN junction diode. If I apply a voltage Vd across it, what is the expression for the current? This will be some saturation current into exponential of the voltage you have applied Vd divided by thermal voltage Vt minus 1, right? So this Is is what we call as the saturation current. It's also called as reverse saturation current. This is a diode property, comes from the device physics. Its values range over several orders. It could go from few femtoamperes to picoamperes. Now what is Vt? This is a this is what we call as the thermal voltage. This is given by Kt by Q, where what is K? This is the Boltzmann constant. T, absolute temperature, and Q, electron charge. What is the dimension for Kt by Q? It has to be volts, right? Because this has to be in volts, so that Vd by Vt is dimensionless. So the argument of the exponential is dimensionless. Okay? So yeah, now looking at this, can you quickly tell me if your Vd is a large negative number, it's much smaller than 0, what is the value for Id? This is equal to minus Is. If Vd is equal to 0, then Id is equal to? Id is also equal to 0. And if your Vd is much greater than Vt, right, it actually has to be 4 to 5 times greater than Vt, then what can you approximate Id as? So it's exponential of a large number minus 1. So that minus 1 is very inconsequential. So you can simplify this to be Is into exponential of Vd by Vt. Right? We can quickly plot the ID-Vd characteristics for a diode. So can you quickly plot it? We have done a basic analysis, so you should be able to do this one. Feel free to discuss with your partner. So let's look at what you get. So for large negative values of Vd, this should be equal to minus Is. Right? When Vd equal to 0, you should touch here. And as Vd increases beyond that, the value has to increase exponentially. So you should get a curve like this. Okay? You have to remember that these are much greater than much smaller. So you shouldn't use this approximation as you get too close to 0. Right? So you should get a continuous curve which is at minus Is here and above this it's an exponential curve. So based on this, we usually classify the region of operation of the diode. If your Vd is lesser than 0, we say that the diode is operating in or in reverse bias, right? Which is why IS is also sometimes called as a reverse saturation current. And if your Vd is greater than 0, we say that it is in forward bias. And in reverse bias, the value of the ID is typically very small. And in forward bias, you can get very large IDs depending on the value of Vd. So this large, small are relative terms here. So I'm comparing the current in reverse bias and forward bias and making the statement that the currents are large and small. Okay. Now this circuit, also this IV characteristics also tells you about the passive nature of the device, right? So if you had a device where voltage is present in this direction with this polarity, and current is flowing through the positive terminal and out of the negative terminal, what is the power dissipated? Right? The power dissipated would simply be V into I. Right? So if V into I is positive with this convention of voltage and current, it means that the network or the device is dissipating power. Right? So that tells you that you can have the IV characteristics only in the first and the third quadrant. If you enter into fourth or the second quadrant, then your Vi can become negative, right? Which means it is generating energy. And this is true for any passive device. If you think of a resistor whose characteristic, IV characteristic looks like this, it is present only in the first and the third quadrants. And because the characteristic can only be present in first and third, it also follows that it has to pass through the origin. Right? Something to keep in mind. Okay, so now let us build a circuit using this diode. So I take some source, let's say Vs, it's connected to a resistor R1 and a diode as shown here. Okay. Let's assume that this node is a ground. So I can assume some voltage Vd across it, let the current flowing through the diode be some ID. Right? Then I basically have the equation Vs minus Vd divided by R1, this is same as ID, should be equal to, what is the expression for ID? Is into exponential of Vd by Vt minus 1. Okay. So you have the expression, assume that I have given you Vs, R1, Vt, etc. Is is also a device property which you need to know if you have to do the calculation. Can you give me a closed form expression for Vd? Take a minute, feel free to discuss with your partner and give me an expression. Sorry? No approximations yet, right? I've just applied some Vs. Oh, you're asking if you can assume Vd to be much greater than Vt? Well, go ahead, make that approximation, see if you can give me a closed form expression for Vd. So quick show of hands, how many of you think you can get to a solution? What is the problem? This is a nonlinear equation, right? And nonlinear equations are not very easy to solve, right? So because you are dealing with a nonlinear network, you have got a nonlinear equation, and typically to solve these equations, you will have to either resort to numerical methods or you have to resort to graphical methods. Okay. So example of the numerical algorithm that is typically used in simulation tools include Newton-Raphson method. So it's an iterative process wherein you start with an initial value, then you keep solving it to make sure the error in this equation is reducing as you proceed, and eventually you zero in on a particular value. Now, the graphical method is very useful when you want to visualize what is happening. So let us try and understand how we can derive the solution graphically. So there is an LHS and there is an RHS. Both of them are basically equations for ID, and the parameter that is unknown is VD. So I'm going to do an ID versus VD plot. Okay, and RHS is simply our diode current equation. So I'll directly sketch that. So now we have to sketch the LHS. So quickly tell me, when Vs is equal to 0, sorry, when Vd is equal to 0, because our x-axis is Vd, when Vd equal to 0, what is the LHS? And when Vd is equal to Vs, LHS is 0. And this is of course the equation of a straight line. And what is the slope? What is the slope? Minus 1 by r. So I simply have to mark out these points and you will be able to sketch the second line as well. So this point is Vs by R1, this is R1. And when Vd is equal to Vs, this value has to be 0. And if you sketch the line, you will see that this will have a slope of minus 1 by r. So the point where both these intersect, you have some Vd here and some ID here. To differentiate it from the axis labeling, I am going to call it as Vd1 and Id1. Right? So that is the solution for the system that you are looking at. Is that clear? Okay. So let's say I set up this whole system, I put in a lot of efforts, found the solution graphically. And now let's assume after all this was done, the input voltage Vs changed by a small amount, right? So on top of this, so I will call this as Vs equal to the original Vs naught for which we solved the equation plus a very small increment delta Vs, let's say something like 10 millivolt. Okay, corresponding to this, you would expect to see a very small change in the current, right? And you will see some small change in this voltage as well. So do I need to use delta? If I write it in small letters, we'll assume that it is a small signal fluctuation, right? So maybe Vs0 was initially 4 volt. Now it has become 4 volt plus 10 millivolt, 4.01 volt, right? So a very small change. How do I go about solving this? Now, if I want to solve it graphically, I have to identify the new value of Vs, which is somewhere here, and then I find out this new point, and corresponding to this, I will get the next value of current and voltage. So I call this as Vd0, Id0 in the first level. Then I can call this as Vd1 and Id1. Is that clear? Now the problem gets even more tricky if your voltage, the additional small signal fluctuation, is not constant. Now let's assume that instead of this Vs being a constant, I added some sine source. So now this is Vs of sine omega naught t, right? So I'm looking at some Vs given by Vs naught plus a sinusoidal fluctuation. I could assume, so let me give you some values. Let's say this was 4 volt plus this is some 10 millivolt into sine of omega naught t. So how does my Vs look like? So around 4 volt, you are seeing a sinusoidal fluctuation, where the peak of this fluctuation is only 10 millivolt. Right? So what is the peak value here? This is 4.01 volt. What is the value here? 3.99 volt. Right? So you have a sinusoidal fluctuation which is going from 4.01 volt to 3.99 volt. Now if you wanted to find out what your output waveforms are going to look like, you basically now have to do this graphical method for a lot of points on the circuit. Right? Now imagine doing this analysis for an audio signal which is a summation of several sinusoids. We can dedicate this course for solving one problem, and then I'll give you the same question for the NSEM also. Right? So clearly this is not the way how we can go about it. Right? Now we are going to rely on the fact that the fluctuation that is happening is incremental, and we are going to see whether is there an easy way to do all this calculation, provided I have done one initial calculation. So I have done one initial calculation, I found out what the different voltage values are when I give, let's say, constant 4 volt. Use this information plus the fact that the fluctuation is very small. Is there an easy way to go about predicting the output? So that is our main aim now. So let us set up the whole equations for our thought process. So the first circuit that we are going to consider is the original circuit, where we had the resistor R1, a diode, and this voltage source. So here Vs was equal to Vs0. Whatever is the voltage across the diode, I am going to call this as Vd0, and the current through this as Id0. Okay. Now on top of this, we have now added a small signal. So I am going to call my Vs as some Vs0 plus a small signal. So you have R1, have the diode. What comments can you make about the voltage across the diode? This will be Vd0 plus some small signal. We don't know what the value is, so I'll represent it as Vd. Similarly, I would expect the current also to have changed. This will be some Id0 plus some small signal Id. Okay. Now the expression for this will be Vs minus Vd by R1, Vs0 minus Vd0 by R1 will be equal to Is into exponential of Vd0 by Vt minus 1. Now I am going to approximate, I am going to assume that this Vd0 is much larger than Vt, then I can simply ignore the minus 1 part. Okay. How do I set up the equation for this? So this is Vs0 plus Vs minus Vd0 minus the small signal Vd divided by R1. This is equal to Is into exponential of Vd0 plus Vd divided by Vt. So let's say this is my equation A, this is equation B. Can you subtract B minus A and see what results you are getting? So once I do B minus A, what do I get? So you will have Vs minus Vd by R1. This will be equal to Is into, so I can take the common factors outside. Okay. So you'll have exponential of Vd0 by Vt coming outside. And in the bracket, you'll have exponential of Vd by Vt minus 1. So let us look at this term. If you have e power x, what is the expansion? Plus s square by 2 factorial plus all the higher order terms, right? So now I have e power Vd by Vt. So this corresponds to 1 plus Vd by Vt plus Vd by Vt the whole square by 2 factorial plus the remaining higher order terms. Okay. Now it's always possible to find a value of Vd such that this term is much smaller than this. Okay. So all that I am saying is this, the second higher order term given by Vd by Vt the whole square by 2 factorial has to be smaller than Vd by Vt. Can you tell me the conditions for this to be true? Vd by Vt should be lesser than? What happened to the 2 factorial? Should be lesser than 2. Right? So the condition that you said, which was Vd by Vt should be much smaller than 1, if that is satisfied, this condition is also satisfied. So your answer is not incorrect, just that it didn't come directly from here, that's all. So if you design such that the Vd value is much smaller than twice of Vt, then you can ignore the higher order terms. Right? So when we say the Vd is small enough, all that it means is that Vd is much smaller than twice of Vt. So once this is satisfied, then you can approximate e power Vd by Vt to be equal to 1 plus Vd by Vt. Now I can substitute this back into this equation. So this becomes 1 plus Vd by Vt minus 1. So the ones get cancelled, and what you are left with is simply this into Vd by Vt. Okay, so far with me? Now what does this term remind you of? This was the ID naught that you started off with. So now I can write this as ID naught into Vd by Vt. I'm going to do a little bit more rearrangement and write it as Vd divided by the thermal voltage by ID naught. So far okay? Quickly tell me, what is the dimension of this quantity? This has a dimension of resistance, right? So then I can simply call this as some Rd. Okay, so the equation now I am left with is Vs minus Vd divided by R1 equal to some Vd divided by Rd. Okay, and this is a very linear equation. Right? There is nothing non-linear about it. You can easily solve for the value of Vd. But more importantly, what does this equation remind you of? It reminds you of a very linear circuit, right? Which consists of some Vs. There is a resistance R1, and you follow up with a small signal resistance because you have evaluated it for all incremental small signal quantities, right? So some resistance whose value is given by the thermal voltage divided by ID naught. Okay. So now it looks like even when you have a nonlinear circuit, the moment you solve it for that initial stable voltage, right, you can easily develop a circuit like this based on it. Now for any incremental fluctuations on it, you simply solve this circuit, find out what is the small signal Vd that is being generated here, find out what is the small signal ID, right? And put this information into your original circuit, and you have this answer. Is that clear? So you had circuit number 1 originally, and you wanted to find out what is the result if you made some incremental changes into the original circuit. Now to do this, if you have solved this, you can easily construct another linear circuit given by this format. I have a problem with the stylus, but you can easily construct this circuit, right? And then you can calculate the small signal ID, small signal VD, and then sum it up with the original circuit, and you have the answers for the final circuit. So now imagine if Vs was not a constant incremental voltage. Instead of it being 10 millivolt, you have this as 10 millivolt sine omega naught t, right? Instead of having to do the graphical method or numerical method for different points over and over again to trace out the output over one sine wave, you can simply apply that Vs sine omega naught t as the input onto this linear circuit, find out what is the incremental Vd, find out what is the incremental Id, and you can sum it up with this, right? Such that you know the final answer. Okay? Is that clear? So take a minute and see if you have any questions on this. So looks like all the number of hours you dedicated for learning linear equations is not a waste after all. You still get to use it, just with some additional steps. Okay, so it looks like we have a very clean solution to solve this now. Let me also explain what is happening in the graphical method. So this was the original way in which we solved both the equations together. Let me erase the second point. Okay. So this was your Vs0, you have ID0 and Vd0 marked. Now from this point, you are changing your Vs by a small amount. Right? That means you would expect to be moving somewhere on this curve. Now, if the distance that you need to move is very small, right? And if you zoom in into this region close enough, now even this white line sort of looks like a straight line to you, right? So that is what we are going to use. We are going to say that any nonlinear curve, if you zoom in and observe in a very small region, can look like a straight line, right? So we will approximate this nonlinear line with the tangent at that location. So you will draw a line which is passing through this point, where the slope is same as the slope of this line, slope of this curve at that point. Okay, so then you can sketch a tangent like this. Now instead of moving on this nonlinear curve to find the solution, you are going to move on this straight line. Okay, so now if your Vs voltage has increased by a small amount, we said that you will ideally have to plot the new line corresponding to the new Vs minus Vd by R, which would have been this line, correct? That would mean you are moving on this ID equation on this white curve and hitting this point. Now instead of hitting that point, you are now going to move on the straight line and you will get a different solution. Now, if the new VS, which means the new VD0, the new VD, the new ID, etc., are close enough, the error you make with this approximation is going to be very small. Okay? So the idea is how further away are you moving? That is the basic question. If you are moving in a small region around the initial point of calculation, then the error you make is very small. And we also derived how small it should be, such that the error is reasonable, such that the final result is reasonably accurate. Okay, is that clear? Can you quickly tell me what is the slope of this line? This you will get it as ID by VT. Right? So this is like a resistor whose value is VT by ID. So that is what you have seen from the calculations as well. Okay. So just to conclude, let me give you the main point of discussion here. So if the change, be it in the voltage or the current, at the input is small, we are going to approximate the nonlinear curve by its tangent, right? And this yields a good enough solution. This is of course an approximate solution. You are making a small error in doing this calculation, but that error is mostly okay in most of the practical applications. So this is a common practice that we will be following throughout this course. Now as a homework, I want you to consider how would we go about this problem if I did not give you an exponential relationship. I just told you that ID was some function of VD, right? How would you go about this problem? So think about this and we can discuss it in the next class. So we'll have a very short first class for today. Thank you.